What if I told you that the giants of legend were real, that their bloodlines still walk among us, and their creators, the ancient Anunnaki, left behind secrets too dangerous for humanity to uncover? But what if I also told you that these giants, the Nephilim, weren't just protectors of the past, but now they've returned as weapons of war? This is the story of forbidden experiments, a rogue scientist, and the rise of a hero destined to face the monstrous giants threatening to destroy our world. The stars burned bright against the dark void, their glow fractured as a massive celestial vessel sliced through the heavens. This was no ordinary craft. It bore the Anunnaki, an ancient race of celestial beings whose wisdom and power stretched beyond comprehension. They descended to Earth, drawn by the glittering veins of gold buried deep within its crust, a resource they needed to sustain their advanced civilization. The Anunnaki came not as gods, though humanity would one day revere them as such, but as architects of survival. Yet mining Earth's treasures was no simple task, even for beings of their stature. Earth's air was dense, its gravity taxing. The labor was grueling, even for their genetically superior kind. They needed workers. They needed a solution. Enlil, the commander of the Anunnaki, stood before a council of their greatest minds. "We cannot afford to squander our strength on endless toil," he declared, his voice booming like thunder. "The humans we've uplifted lack the might to meet our needs. We must create something more, something stronger." The council murmured their assent. Among them sat Azazel, a brilliant scientist whose curiosity often blurred the line between innovation and defiance. "If we combine the strength of our own kind with the resilience of humanity," Azazel proposed, "we could forge a new race. They would be more than workers. They would be warriors, protectors." With reluctant approval, the council sanctioned the experiment, and thus began the creation of the Nephilim. In secret laboratories deep beneath the earth, the Anunnaki manipulated the very threads of life. They spliced their own celestial DNA with that of humanity, crafting beings of immense stature and power. The first of these hybrids, Adamu, rose from the genetic vats, standing nearly 3 times the height of a human. His muscles rippled with strength, his eyes glowed faintly with the light of the Anunnaki, and his movements carried the grace of a predator. The early Nephilim were a marvel. They were not only strong but intelligent, capable of learning and adapting at incredible speeds. Under the Anunnaki's guidance, they built great cities, ziggurats that pierced the heavens, and networks of energy channels to harness Earth's natural forces. These were no simple monuments. They were power systems, aligning with the stars and the Earth's ley lines, a technology lost to humanity but remembered in whispers of myth. The Nephilim became legends even in their time. Humans looked up to them, awestruck, offering prayers to their towering forms. To the Anunnaki, they were tools. To humanity, they were gods. While the Nephilim thrived under their purpose, Azazel's mind burned with ambition. "We have created strength," he mused, watching a group of Nephilim spar in a coliseum. Their strikes cracked stone, their roars echoed like thunder. But we have yet to realize their full potential. Azazel's experiments began innocently enough, enhancing reflexes, boosting endurance, but soon, his curiosity became obsession. He worked in secrecy, driven by a vision of perfection. He believed that the Nephilim could surpass both humanity and the Anunnaki, becoming the ultimate beings. Using forbidden techniques, he altered their DNA even further, unlocking dormant traits hidden in the Anunnaki's genetic code. The results were catastrophic. The new Nephilim were faster, stronger, but they were also uncontrollable. Their aggression knew no bounds, and their hunger for power became insatiable. One fateful night, a group of enhanced Nephilim, led by a monstrous figure named Zahak, stormed the Anunnaki's citadel. Flames tore through the night as the giants unleashed their fury, smashing through walls and slaughtering their creators without mercy. Humanity, once protected by these beings, now found themselves cowering in fear. The Anunnaki fought back, wielding energy weapons that crackled with the force of the cosmos. Lightning arced from their staffs, vaporizing Nephilim where they stood. But for every giant they felled, more rose to take their place. The enhanced Nephilim were relentless, their sheer numbers and brute strength overwhelming even the gods. Amidst the chaos, Azazel stood atop a ruined temple, watching the destruction with a mix of pride and despair. "This is evolution," he whispered. "This is the price of progress." Enlil, bloodied but unbowed, confronted Azazel. "You've doomed us all," he roared, striking the scientist to the ground. "Your creations will destroy everything." Azazel's only reply was a chilling smile. "They are not my creations anymore. They are free." Realizing that the Nephilim could not be controlled, the Anunnaki convened to make a terrible decision. Using their most advanced technologies, they unleashed a wave of energy that drove the rogue giants into the deepest caverns of the earth. These giants, too dangerous to be destroyed outright, were imprisoned in a hidden realm, sealed away with powerful glyphs and Anunnaki relics. Azazel was brought before the council. Stripped of his rank, he was sentenced to eternal exile, bound in chains forged from starlight and cast into a dimensional prison. As he was dragged away, his voice rang out like a curse. "You think this is the end? My creations will rise again. And when they do, this world will tremble." The Nephilim faded into legend, their mighty deeds remembered in fragmented tales and ancient carvings. Humanity, unaware of the giants sleeping beneath their feet, told stories of gods and titans, of wars that shaped the world. The Anunnaki departed, leaving behind only whispers of their presence. Yet deep within the earth, the Nephilim stirred. Their dreams were filled with rage, their hearts still burning with the fury of their creator. They waited, knowing that one day, the seals would break, and they would rise again. The sky turned crimson as fires raged across the lands. The Nephilim rebellion was in full force, and the earth trembled beneath their monstrous strides. Zahak, the towering warlord born of Azazel's forbidden experiments, led the charge. His hulking form was clad in armor forged from ancient Anunnaki metals, and his weapon, a massive energy blade that crackled with the force of 1,000 storms, carved through both man and Anunnaki alike. Villages burned, cities fell, and humanity was left shattered in the wake of the Nephilim's fury. No longer protectors, these giants were now destroyers, their eyes blazing with the unrelenting hunger for power instilled by Azazel's corrupted designs. "Do you see it?" Zahak bellowed as he stood atop the ruins of an ancient ziggurat, his voice echoing through the burning sky. "The age of the gods is over. We are the masters now." Behind him, thousands of Nephilim roared in agreement, their massive fists pounding the earth like drums of war. Humans fled in terror, their screams swallowed by the cacophony of destruction. The once proud Anunnaki, wielders of cosmic knowledge, found themselves on the defensive, retreating to fortified cities as their creations turned on them. Amid the chaos, the Anunnaki Council gathered in desperation. Enlil slammed his fist onto the stone table, his golden armor stained with ash. "We cannot contain them. Their numbers grow with every human they subjugate. This rebellion will consume the earth." Ninurta, a warrior known for his unyielding courage, stood. "Then we make our stand. We cannot let Azazel's madness destroy the balance of this world." The Anunnaki launched a counteroffensive. Celestial ships descended from the skies, their hulls gleaming like stars as they unleashed beams of concentrated energy. Giants fell, their massive forms crashing to the earth, but for every Nephilim slain, 2 more seemed to rise. Zahak had taught his followers the secrets of Azazel's genetic manipulation, and now, rogue camps of humans were being forcibly altered to swell their ranks. On the ground, the battles were nothing short of apocalyptic. Anunnaki warriors, wielding staffs that fired crackling arcs of energy, fought alongside brave human resistance fighters armed with scavenged weapons. The earth shook as giants and gods clashed, their blows sending shockwaves that leveled mountains. In one fateful encounter, Ninurta faced Zahak himself. The Nephilim warlord towered over him, his energy blade humming with deadly intent. "You were always your master's loyal hound," Zahak sneered, swinging his weapon in a deadly arc. "And you are nothing more than a monster," Ninurta replied, dodging the strike and retaliating with a blast from his staff. The duel raged for hours, but even Ninurta's formidable skill was no match for Zahak's enhanced power. Gravely wounded, Ninurta was forced to retreat, leaving Zahak victorious. As the war dragged on, the Anunnaki realized that brute force alone could not defeat the Nephilim. The council turned to Enki, the god of wisdom and creation, for a solution. Enki proposed a desperate plan: to create a weapon powerful enough to neutralize the Nephilim entirely. This weapon, known as the Seal of Anu, was a device that could manipulate the very essence of life, severing the corrupted Nephilim DNA and rendering them powerless. But the weapon came with a cost. It required the energy of an Anunnaki soul to activate. Enlil volunteered without hesitation. "If this is the price for the survival of Earth, then I will pay it." The Anunnaki launched their final assault, armed with the Seal of Anu. As the Nephilim gathered for a final push to seize the last Anunnaki stronghold, the heavens opened. A blinding beam of energy descended from the sky, and with it came Enlil, his golden armor glowing with an otherworldly light. Zahak roared in defiance. "You think your tricks will stop us? We are eternal." Enlil raised the Seal of Anu, its intricate carvings pulsing with cosmic energy. "Eternal? No, Zahak. You were never meant to exist." The weapon activated, releasing a wave of energy that rippled across the battlefield. The Nephilim screamed as their forms began to wither, their corrupted DNA unraveling under the device's power. Zahak, defiant to the end, charged at Enlil, but the energy consumed him before he could strike. The rogue Nephilim were banished to the hidden realms of the earth, their monstrous forms sealed away with ancient glyphs and wards. The ground itself swallowed them, and silence fell over the battlefield. Enlil, drained of his life force, collapsed beside the artifact. His final words to Ninurta were simple: "Protect this world from them." Azazel, bound in chains of cosmic light, was brought before the Anunnaki Council for his crimes. "You sought to create gods," Enki said, his voice heavy with sorrow, "but you unleashed demons." Azazel laughed, even as he was dragged into a dimensional prison. "You think this is over? My creations will rise again, and when they do, even your wisdom will not save you." With Azazel sealed away and the Nephilim banished, the Anunnaki prepared to leave Earth. They erased all traces of their presence, ensuring humanity would forget them. The mighty cities and technologies they left behind became mysteries, their purpose lost to time. As humanity rebuilt, whispers of giants and gods faded into legend. But deep within the earth, the Nephilim slept, their monstrous hearts still beating in the darkness. And far beyond the stars, Azazel's laughter echoed, a chilling promise that the nightmare was far from over. Far below the surface of the earth, sealed chambers resonated with an energy long forgotten. The ancient glyphs that held back the Nephilim, etched by the Anunnaki themselves, began to fracture. Deep rumbles echoed through the earth like a heartbeat, the sound reverberating through hidden caverns and forgotten vaults. The seals that had held the monstrous Nephilim for millennia were weakening, their power fading with the passing of eons. In the distant heavens, the loyal remnants of the Anunnaki, still observing Earth, sensed the disturbance. Among them was Anu-Teir, one of the last of the great Anunnaki warriors who had sworn an eternal oath to protect humanity. "They are stirring," Anu-Teir said, his voice solemn as he addressed the High Council. "The seals have held for thousands of years, but now their strength wanes. Zahak will rise again, and with him, the age of chaos will return." The council was divided. Some argued that humanity should be left to face its fate, while others believed intervention was necessary. But Anu-Teir refused to wait for indecision. "I will not stand by as the mistakes of the past destroy the future," he declared, leaving the assembly. His destination? Earth. As the seals broke, the Nephilim began to awaken, their massive forms stirring in the darkness of their subterranean prisons. Zahak, their warlord, was the first to rise. His hulking figure emerged from a chamber adorned with ancient symbols that glowed faintly before crumbling to dust. His red eyes burned with fury as he stretched his colossal limbs, his mind already plotting vengeance. The Nephilim were not alone. Hidden across the earth were caches of Anunnaki relics, powerful weapons, and devices capable of reshaping the world. Zahak's first act was to rally his followers and reclaim these artifacts, ensuring their domination would be absolute. His deep, guttural voice echoed through the caverns as he called to his brethren. "Brothers and sisters," Zahak bellowed, his voice a rumble that could shatter stone. "The time of our imprisonment has ended. The age of the gods is over. Now, the earth belongs to us." The giants roared in agreement, their cries shaking the very foundation of the planet. With each step, they brought destruction, their colossal forms emerging from hidden caves and erupting onto the surface. In a secluded valley untouched by modern civilization, Kael, a towering figure with the frame of a warrior and the sharp instincts of a predator, lived in quiet isolation. Kael had always felt different. His strength was unmatched, his reflexes too sharp, and his instincts too keen for any ordinary human. He was an enigma, a remnant of a forgotten age. One fateful night, Kael's dreams were invaded by visions. He found himself standing in the midst of chaos. Fires burned across the land, and Nephilim roamed freely, their laughter chilling and cruel. Towering above them all was Zahak, clad in dark Anunnaki-forged armor, his glowing blade crackling with energy. "You are nothing," Zahak sneered, pointing his weapon at Kael. "The blood of the Nephilim flows in you, but you are weak, a shadow of what you could be. Bow to me, and perhaps I'll let you live." Kael awoke with a start, his body drenched in sweat. His hands were marked with glowing glyphs he had never seen before, symbols that pulsed with an energy older than time itself. Before he could process what was happening, a bright light filled his humble dwelling. When the light faded, Anu-Teir stood before him, his tall form emanating a commanding presence. "You are not an ordinary man, Kael," Anu-Teir said. "You are the last uncorrupted descendant of the Nephilim. You carry within you the strength to stop Zahak and his army." Kael's voice was steady but skeptical. "Why me? I've lived a life of peace. I have no desire for war." "You may not seek war," Anu-Teir replied, "but war has found you. Zahak has risen, and the seals are breaking. If you do nothing, humanity will fall. You were chosen long before you were born." Anu-Teir led Kael to an ancient temple hidden in the mountains, a place untouched by time. Inside, Kael saw the remnants of Anunnaki power. Walls lined with glowing inscriptions, intricate devices humming with dormant energy, and at the center of it all, a massive altar. Resting upon the altar was the Helios Blade, an ancient weapon forged by the Anunnaki to counter the Nephilim's might. The blade pulsed as Kael approached, its glow intensifying with every step. When he reached out and gripped the hilt, a surge of energy coursed through his body, unlocking memories buried deep within his DNA. He saw flashes of his ancestors fighting alongside the Anunnaki, their bravery and strength holding the line against the corrupted Nephilim. "This blade is not just a weapon," Anu-Teir explained. "It is a key to your potential, but wielding it comes at a price. It will demand everything from you." Kael tightened his grip. If this is what it takes to protect humanity, then so be it. Their journey was interrupted by a deafening roar. One of Zahak's lieutenants, a hulking Nephilim armed with a massive warhammer, had tracked them to the temple. The giant's eyes blazed with hatred as he stepped forward, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Return the blade, hybrid," the lieutenant growled. "It belongs to us." Kael felt the weight of the Helios Blade in his hands. The air around him seemed to hum with its power. Anu-Teir raised his staff, creating a protective barrier, but the Nephilim's warhammer shattered it with a single strike. The ground shook as the giant charged. Kael's instincts kicked in. He dodged the massive hammer, the blade in his hands moving as if it had a mind of its own. Sparks flew as Kael countered, the Helios Blade slicing through the air with deadly precision. The battle was fierce, each strike echoing with the force of a thunderclap. With a final, desperate surge of power, Kael plunged the Helios Blade into the giant's chest. The Nephilim roared in agony before collapsing, his massive form shaking the ground. Kael stood over the fallen foe, his chest heaving, the blade still glowing in his hand. "You are stronger than you know," Anu-Teir said, placing a hand on Kael's shoulder. "But this is only the beginning. Zahak will come for you, and when he does, you must be ready." The sun hung low in the sky, casting a fiery glow over the mountains as Kael and Anu-Teir descended from the ancient temple. The weight of Kael's newfound purpose was as heavy as the Helios Blade strapped to his back. He was no longer the man he had been just days ago. His quiet, isolated life had been replaced by a destiny that demanded more than he thought he could give. "Where do we go now?" Kael asked, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. "To prepare," Anu-Teir said, his tone carrying the gravity of the task ahead. "Your strength alone will not be enough. The Nephilim are awakening in numbers, and Zahak has already begun his campaign to claim the relics we left behind. If he succeeds, there will be nothing left to save." Their journey took them deep into the wilderness, where Anu-Teir began Kael's training. The loyal Anunnaki warrior taught him to control his hybrid abilities, drawing upon both his human adaptability and the latent power of his Nephilim lineage. Each lesson was grueling, designed to push Kael beyond his limits. Anu-Teir led Kael to an ancient clearing where the ground was covered in glowing glyphs. "These are the battlefields where your ancestors fought to protect this world," he said. "Here, you will learn what it means to wield the power of the Nephilim." The training began with combat drills. Anu-Teir attacked Kael relentlessly, forcing him to defend himself using the Helios Blade. Each strike from the Anunnaki's staff sent shockwaves through the air, and Kael had to react faster than his human reflexes allowed. "Focus," Anu-Teir barked. "Your strength is meaningless without control." Kael's frustration boiled over as he missed a counterstrike, his blade embedding itself in the ground. "This is impossible," he shouted, sweat dripping from his brow. Anu-Teir stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Your enemies will not wait for you to be ready. If you hesitate, you will die, and so will those you are meant to protect." Kael gritted his teeth, his resolve hardening. He picked up the blade and resumed the fight, each swing more precise, each movement more fluid. By the end of the day, Kael stood victorious in their sparring session, his breath ragged but his confidence growing. That night, as Kael rested by the campfire, the Helios Blade began to glow faintly. He gripped it instinctively, and his mind was flooded with visions. He saw the world as it had been millennia ago. Vast cities ruled by the Anunnaki, their structures shimmering with otherworldly energy. He saw the Nephilim as they were meant to be, noble guardians, towering yet benevolent, protecting humanity with unwavering loyalty. But the vision darkened. He witnessed Azazel's experiments, the grotesque transformations of the Nephilim into monstrous beings. He saw Zahak's rebellion, the destruction of cities, and the desperate battle to seal the giants away. He felt the fear, the loss, and the sacrifice of the Anunnaki who had fought to save humanity. As the vision faded, Kael opened his eyes to find Anu-Teir watching him. "You saw it, didn't you?" the Anunnaki asked. Kael nodded. "I saw what they were, and what they became. How can I stand against them?" "You stand because you must," Anu-Teir replied. "You are their last hope." Anu-Teir explained that Zahak was not only gathering his army, but also searching for ancient Anunnaki relics scattered across the earth. These relics were keys to unimaginable power, capable of shifting the balance of any battle. If Zahak obtained them, his victory would be certain. "We must reach the relics first," Anu-Teir said. "There are 3 that remain within our grasp. The first lies in the ruins of Adinu, a place hidden in the jungles of what you now call South America." Their journey to the ruins of Adinu was fraught with peril. The jungle seemed alive with danger, its dense foliage hiding predators both natural and unnatural. Kael's senses sharpened as they moved deeper into the wilderness, his instincts guiding him past traps and dangers. At the heart of the jungle, they found the ruins, a massive temple overgrown with vines and moss, its structure humming faintly with ancient energy. Anu-Teir approached the entrance, his hand glowing as he traced the glyphs carved into the stone. The door rumbled open, revealing a labyrinth of corridors filled with traps. Navigating the labyrinth was a test of both mind and body. Blades shot from the walls, floors crumbled beneath their feet, and beams of light sliced through the air. Kael's hybrid abilities proved invaluable, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to dodge danger while his strength cleared paths through blocked passages. At the center of the temple, they found the first relic, a glowing orb suspended in midair, pulsating with energy. Anu-Teir approached it cautiously, his expression grave. "This is the Orb of Kuthra," he said. "It controls the flow of energy through the Earth's ley lines. In the wrong hands, it could tear the planet apart." As Anu-Teir reached for the orb, a deafening roar echoed through the chamber. A Nephilim guardian, its body adorned with jagged armor and its eyes burning with malice, emerged from the shadows. It had been left to protect the relic, and it would not yield easily. Kael stepped forward, the Helios Blade glowing in his hands. "Go," he said to Anu-Teir. "I'll hold it off." The battle was fierce. The Guardian's strikes were relentless, each one threatening to crush Kael. But Kael fought with a determination fueled by his training and his visions. He moved faster, struck harder, and finally delivered a decisive blow, the Helios Blade piercing the Guardian's heart. As the creature fell, Anu-Teir secured the relic. "This is only the beginning," he said as they left the temple. "Zahak will stop at nothing to claim the others. We must stay ahead of him." Kael nodded, his grip tightening on the blade. The fight had just begun, and he knew the path ahead would only grow more dangerous. Far from Kael and Anu-Teir's journey, the world was already succumbing to chaos. Across the continents, monstrous figures emerged from hidden realms, their colossal forms tearing through the fabric of modern civilization. These were the awakened Nephilim, their numbers growing with each passing day, and at their helm stood Zahak, the warlord of destruction. Zahak stood on the peak of a shattered mountain, his massive frame silhouetted against the blood-red sky. His armor, forged from Anunnaki alloys, gleamed darkly, etched with runes of power. In his hands was the scepter of Sarum, an artifact capable of unleashing devastating bursts of energy. Surrounding him was a growing army of Nephilim. Once dormant, their monstrous bodies now thrummed with vitality as they rallied to Zahak's command. Each one bore scars of the experiments that had corrupted them. Elongated limbs, jagged spines, glowing eyes. They roared in unison, their combined voices shaking the earth. "We were gods," Zahak bellowed, his voice amplified by the scepter. "We were betrayed, cast into the shadows by our creators and their weak human pets. But no longer. We shall rise, and this world will kneel before us." The Nephilim began their campaign of terror, marching across lands and destroying everything in their path. Cities fell like dominoes, their defenses crumbling before the overwhelming strength of the giants. Advanced human weaponry, tanks, jets, missiles, proved useless against the Nephilim's resilience and raw power. Kael and Anu-Teir had no time to celebrate their victory in the jungles of Adinu. The relic they had recovered was but one of 3, and the second was rumored to be hidden in the icy wastelands of what humans now called Antarctica, a region the Anunnaki had once used as a stronghold during their reign. The second relic, the Shield of Anu, is the key to protecting against Zahak's scepter, Anu-Teir explained, as they traversed the frozen tundra. Without it, we stand no chance of surviving his attacks. The journey was grueling. Icy winds howled around them, and the snow seemed to cling to their bodies, draining their strength. But Kael's hybrid endurance kept him moving, his determination unwavering. As they neared the stronghold, the ice beneath their feet began to glow faintly, revealing the hidden glyphs of an Anunnaki gateway. Inside, the stronghold was a labyrinth of frozen corridors and chambers. Anu-Teir explained that the Shield of Anu had been placed in a secure vault, guarded by automated defenses left behind by the Anunnaki. As they reached the inner sanctum, a colossal construct emerged from the shadows. It was a mechanical guardian, standing at least 30 feet tall, its form a fusion of metal and energy. Its single eye glowed like a miniature sun, and its arms were equipped with massive blades that crackled with electricity. Kael stepped forward, the Helios Blade in his hands. "I'll handle this," he said, his voice steady despite the intimidating foe. The battle was unlike anything Kael had faced before. The Guardian moved with precision, each strike calculated and deadly. Kael's blade clashed against its metallic limbs, sparks flying with every impact. Anu-Teir worked frantically to disable the stronghold's defenses, but the Guardian was relentless, its focus locked on Kael. Drawing upon his training, Kael began to anticipate the Guardian's movements. He used its size against it, luring it into tight spaces where its massive blades couldn't reach. Finally, with a burst of speed and strength, he drove the Helios Blade into the construct's core, shattering it in an explosion of light and energy. As the dust settled, Anu-Teir retrieved the Shield of Anu from its pedestal. The artifact shimmered with an otherworldly light, its surface etched with protective glyphs. "With this, we can withstand Zahak's power," Anu-Teir said. "But we still need the third relic to defeat him." Meanwhile, Zahak's campaign reached a new level of brutality. Armed with the Scepter of Sarum, he targeted ancient sites where Anunnaki technology still lay dormant. Each artifact he claimed added to his strength, making him nearly unstoppable. In one dramatic assault, Zahak leveled an entire mountain range to recover the Crown of Ishkor, a relic that granted him control over the elements. With the crown in his possession, he unleashed storms and earthquakes across the lands, further plunging the world into chaos. News of Zahak's destruction reached Kael and Anu-Teir. The hero's resolve deepened, but so did his doubts. "How can we fight something so powerful?" Kael asked as they rested in a hidden shelter. Anu-Teir placed a hand on Kael's shoulder. "You have faced impossible odds before and prevailed. Zahak's strength is immense, but he is not invincible. He underestimates you because he believes you are alone, but you are not." Kael and Anu-Teir began rallying the remnants of humanity and the descendants of the original Nephilim who had remained loyal to their purpose. These descendants, though smaller and weaker than their corrupted kin, possessed wisdom and knowledge passed down through generations. As the resistance grew, Kael emerged as a leader, his victories inspiring hope in a world consumed by despair. He trained tirelessly with the Shield of Anu, learning to wield its defensive powers alongside the Helios Blade. The relics seemed to resonate with him, their energies amplifying his abilities in ways even Anu-Teir could not fully explain. The stage was set for a final showdown. Zahak, now aware of Kael's actions, issued a challenge. "Come to me, little hybrid," he said, his voice echoing across the lands through the power of the scepter. "Bring your relics and your pitiful allies. I will show you the true meaning of power." Kael's heart burned with determination. "We're not just fighting for survival," he told the resistance. "We're fighting for the future, for a world where humanity can stand free from the shadow of the Nephilim." With the Shield of Anu and the Orb of Kuthra in their possession, Kael and his allies prepared for the final battle. But the greatest challenge still lay ahead. Reaching the third relic, hidden in a place where even the Anunnaki feared to tread. The air was thick with tension as Kael stood at the edge of a battlefield unlike any other. The resistance, a mix of determined humans and loyal Nephilim descendants, gathered behind him, their faces grim but resolute. Before them, Zahak's army of corrupted Nephilim loomed like a living wall of destruction, their glowing eyes casting an eerie light over the land. At the center of the horde stood Zahak himself, a towering figure radiating raw power, his dark armor gleaming with the energy of the relics he had claimed. Above, the sky churned with unnatural storms. Lightning crackled and thunder roared, a testament to Zahak's control over the elements. The final relic, the crown of Ishkur, rested on his head, amplifying his might to near-divine levels. With the scepter of Sarum in one hand, Zahak exuded an aura of invincibility. Kael tightened his grip on the Helios Blade, feeling its familiar hum of energy. The shield of Anu glowed faintly on his arm, its glyphs pulsing in sync with his heartbeat. Behind him, Anu-Teir stood tall, his staff of command glowing with Anunnaki light. The resistance was ready. Zahak's voice boomed across the battlefield. "You dare defy me, Kael? You, a weakling clinging to relics you barely understand? I will crush you and your pitiful army, and then I will claim this world as my own." With a single motion, Zahak unleashed the power of the scepter, sending a massive wave of energy across the battlefield. Kael raised the shield of Anu just in time, its protective field absorbing the blast. "Hold the line," he shouted, leading the charge. The two armies clashed with earth-shaking force. Nephilim descendants fought with desperate courage, their smaller frames no match for the brute strength of Zahak's corrupted giants, but their tactics and unity giving them an edge. Humans used advanced traps and scavenged weaponry, luring the larger Nephilim into explosive ambushes. Anu-Teir moved like a force of nature, his staff unleashing beams of light that tore through the enemy ranks. Kael cut through the battlefield, his hybrid strength and the Helios Blade making him a one-man army. Each strike of his weapon sent ripples of energy through the air, cleaving through the corrupted giants with precision. But for every enemy he felled, more took their place. Seeing his forces struggle, Zahak entered the battle. With a single swing of the scepter, he obliterated an entire squad of resistance fighters, his laughter echoing across the field. The warlord's presence was overwhelming, his attacks leaving destruction in their wake. Kael faced him from a distance, the Helios Blade glowing brighter as if reacting to Zahak's power. Their eyes locked, and Zahak grinned. "Come, little hybrid. Show me what your Anunnaki masters have taught you." Kael charged, his blade meeting Zahak's scepter in a clash that sent shockwaves through the battlefield. The ground cracked beneath their feet as they exchanged blow after blow, their movements a blur of speed and power. Zahak's strikes were relentless, his enhanced strength forcing Kael to rely on the shield of Anu to block his attacks. "You fight well," Zahak taunted, his voice dripping with mockery. "But you're nothing compared to me. You don't have the will to do what is necessary." The tide of the battle began to turn against the resistance. Despite their bravery, they were being overwhelmed by the sheer number and strength of Zahak's forces. Anu-Teir, standing at the center of the resistance line, shouted to Kael, "We can't hold them much longer. You must end this now." Kael knew what had to be done. Drawing upon every ounce of strength, he pushed Zahak back with a powerful strike, momentarily creating space between them. He turned to Anu-Teir, his voice resolute. "Take the resistance and fall back. This fight is between me and Zahak now." Anu-Teir hesitated, but finally nodded. "May the strength of your ancestors guide you." As the resistance retreated, Kael faced Zahak alone. The battlefield grew silent as the two warriors circled each other, their weapons crackling with energy. The duel was nothing short of cataclysmic. Zahak unleashed the full power of the relics in his possession, summoning storms and earthquakes to crush Kael. But Kael fought back with equal ferocity, using the Helios Blade and Shield of Anu in perfect harmony. Each clash of their weapons sent shockwaves that rippled across the battlefield. "You fight like a god," Zahak sneered, his attacks growing more aggressive. "But you are still mortal. You will fall like the rest." Kael didn't respond. His focus was absolute, his movements fluid as he dodged Zahak's strikes and countered with precision. The Helios Blade glowed brighter with every swing, as if feeding off Kael's determination. Finally, Zahak raised the scepter for a devastating strike, channeling all its energy into a single, earth-shattering blast. Kael raised the Shield of Anu, the glyphs on its surface blazing with light as it absorbed the attack. The force of the blast drove Kael to his knees, but he held firm. When the attack subsided, Kael rose to his feet, his body battered but his resolve unbroken. "You've taken enough from this world," he said, his voice steady. "It ends now." Kael channeled the combined energy of the relics, the Helios Blade and Shield of Anu resonating in perfect harmony. With a final, powerful strike, he severed Zahak's connection to the scepter, shattering it in a blinding explosion. The warlord roared in fury, his armor cracking as the relic's energy turned against him. As Zahak fell to his knees, his once mighty form reduced to a shadow of its former glory, Kael stood over him. "You were given power to protect," Kael said, his voice filled with both anger and sorrow. "But you chose destruction." With one final swing of the Helios Blade, Kael ended Zahak's reign of terror. The battlefield grew silent as the warlord's massive form crumbled to the ground, his glowing eyes fading to darkness. The resistance returned to find Kael standing alone amidst the ruins of the battlefield, the Helios Blade still glowing faintly in his hands. Though Zahak's forces had been defeated, the cost of victory was immense. The land bore the scars of battle, and many lives had been lost. Anu-Teir approached Kael, his expression a mixture of pride and grief. "You have done what no one else could," he said. "You've saved this world." Kael nodded, his body heavy with exhaustion. "It's not over," he said. "There are still remnants of Zahak's army, and the relics must be safeguarded. This is only the beginning." The battlefield was silent. The Nephilim army, once an unstoppable force, lay defeated, their towering forms scattered like broken monuments. Zahak's shattered remains still radiated faint traces of the power he had wielded, but his reign of terror was over. Kael stood at the center of it all, his body battered, the Helios Blade in his hands dimming as its energy subsided. Anu-Teir approached, his face reflecting both pride and sorrow. "You've done it," he said. "Zahak is no more, and his army has been broken. But the scars of this war will linger." Kael looked at the remnants of the battlefield, the destruction stretching as far as the horizon. He thought of the sacrifices made by the resistance, those who had fought and fallen to ensure this victory. "It doesn't feel like a victory," Kael replied, his voice heavy with grief. "This is only the beginning," Anu-Teir said. "The relics we've recovered must be safeguarded, for there are still forces in this world that would seek to misuse them. Humanity will need protectors, guardians who understand the balance between power and responsibility." Kael nodded, his resolve hardening. "I'll protect them," he said. "I'll make sure no one else uses this power to bring harm." As the resistance began to rebuild, Kael took his place as a leader among the survivors. The descendants of the original Nephilim pledged their loyalty, vowing to help humanity heal and rebuild. Together, they dismantled the remnants of Zahak's forces and ensured the relics were hidden once more. But even as peace returned, Kael felt a lingering unease. In the shadows of the world, ancient energies stirred. The battle with Zahak had sent ripples through realms beyond Earth, and Kael could feel eyes watching from the void. "You have won today," Anu-Teir said as he prepared to leave. "But the echoes of Azazel's defiance remain. This world will face challenges again, and when that time comes, you must be ready." Kael watched as the Anunnaki warrior disappeared into the light, leaving him alone with the weight of his new destiny. He looked toward the horizon, where the first rays of dawn broke through the clouds, illuminating the path forward. In his heart, he knew the fight was far from over. But for now, humanity had a chance to rebuild, a chance to rise again. The story of the Nephilim may have ended here, but the mysteries of the ancient past are far from over. What do you think about the rise of Zahak and the heroic journey of Kael? Could their battle be a reflection of ancient truths hidden in myth? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this journey through epic battles, forgotten legends, and forbidden knowledge, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with others who are fascinated by ancient mysteries. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next chapter of our Anunnaki explorations. Together, let's uncover the secrets of the past and keep these stories alive. Your support helps us bring these incredible tales to life. Thank you for being part of our growing community of truth seekers and storytellers.